Sport and Social Club. Hashtag keep playing.
Sometimes it's going to hurt. Sometimes it's going to be painful. Sometimes you're not going to be able to walk. Are you hearing me? Sometimes when I'm running on that treadmill, I don't feel as good as I normally feel. My leg hurts. Sometimes I'm sick. But this is a physical sport. And if you want it, you got to go get it. You got to play hard for it. Are you hearing what I'm telling you? Because if you quit right now, you ain't going to never see.
Stay in the know and contribute online using hashtag keep playing. sportsocial.club.
No days off, no weekends, no holidays, no birthdays, listen to me, no days off. You gotta take one more step. You gotta run one more lap. You gotta throw one more punch until you stop.
Sport and Social Club. Hashtag keep playing.
Sometimes it's going to hurt. Sometimes it's going to be painful. Sometimes you're not going to be able to walk. Are you hearing me? Sometimes when I'm running on that treadmill, I don't feel as good as I normally feel. My leg hurts. Sometimes I'm sick. But this is a physical sport. And if you want it, you got to go get it. You got to play hard for it. Are you hearing what I'm telling you? Because if you quit right now, you ain't going to never see.
I woke up this morning thinking it was her birthday, and I thought, hey, this is kind of special to be doing this with you today. And I think we got a lot of Sudbury folks in the audience today. I don't know if you can see everyone, but I see Kyle Wanzel, Chuck Bolt. I think I see Jess McShane, Laura Stanyon, a lot of Sudbury folks, Todd Harold, and I'm sure there's more that I'm not seeing right now, but I know there are a lot of Sudbury folks out there. So welcome to all the Sudbury crowd and everyone else who's joining us to chat with my pal Brian. Brian, before we get started, I do want to say that today's episode is brought to us by our partner, the Egg Farmers of Ontario. They are our partner of the day for Ask an Athlete. They are big, proud supporters of grassroots sports programming in a lot of Ontario communities. Finding exciting recipes and learn more about the power of eggs as part of a healthy, balanced diet at www.getkraken.ca. The other thing I want to do before we start is let everyone know Brian is here just out of the goodness of his heart. All of us are benched right now, not able to play sports. And I reached out to Brian to say, hey, we're thinking of starting this Ask an Athlete series just to give people the opportunity to check in and speak to professional and Olympic level athletes. What do you think? Would you be interested in joining me? He said, absolutely, without a doubt. And so as a thanks to Brian, there's no cost for anyone to be here today. No one's making any money, but I would love to ask, if you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation to Brian's charity of choice. Brian lost his niece at the age of 9 to leukemia, and they set up a foundation in her memory to help families dealing with similar crises at the Neo Kids Foundation in Sudbury, as well as Megan's Wings Foundation in the US. And both the links are going to be shared in the chat right now. So if you are interested and able to make a donation as a thanks to Brian for joining us today, please do consider doing so. So, Brian, thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And
How are you?
Yeah, just want to say a happy birthday to my buddy Kyle Wanzel, 49 today.
It's his birthday today. You know what? I have to say, we got to start with a little story about Kyle and you.
Yes.
Another little thing that maybe not everyone knows is before Brian became a professional hockey player, he was a professional painter working for me as a college pro painter when I ran a college pro painting franchise in Sudbury. So Brian painted for me one summer, and as did our friend Kyle, who's with us today, who's apparently a birthday boy. Kyle and Brian painted for me one summer, and the next summer I said to Brian, hey, are you coming back? Can I get you back for another summer of painting? Kyle signed up, as were most of the other guys had agreed to come back for another round of painting. And savvy Brian said to me, Christy, I'm really sorry, but I signed my contract with the Montreal Canadiens last week. I'm not coming back to paint. I'm going to spend my summer golfing. I got a big signing bonus. And ironically, that summer, I landed a contract to paint the golf course in Sudbury, to paint the golf club. And I will never forget, one day, Kyle Wanzel was up on the roof scraping paint chips off of the peeling building. And there's Brian walking out to the first tee, and he looked up and waved at Kyle saying, hey, buddy, like, sucks to be you. Anyway, that was a pretty funny day I'll never forget with both of you guys. So good to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm in Northville, Michigan, obviously locked down like everybody else is, trying to keep active. That's why I love what you're doing and your company's doing, is trying to keep people active and doing some fun stuff along the way. I'm doing all the challenges that have come up every week pretty well. And it's not great what's going on, but it's great to be with the family and having family dinners with all three of my boys every night, playing cards, board games, working out with them, doing a lot of stuff, family stuff, which is great. But
That's awesome.
Really do enjoy your challenges too.
Great, and thank you for participating in that as well. So I don't want to spend too much time. I know you well, but I'm going to start with one question, and then I'm going to open it up to the crowd. We've got lots of questions coming in on the chat already, so I don't want to take too much time from them. Brian, tell me about something that a lot of people may not realize about you, which I find incredibly interesting. Besides the fact that you got not one scholarship offer for college, but two, for hockey or golf. You could have gone to college in the States for either sport. as I said earlier, I always tell people it was 4 sports. I thought it was basketball and track as well. So I've exaggerated that over the years. I apologize. But something that I find most interesting about you is in grade 10 and 11, you weren't playing hockey. Tell us about that.
Sure. As you know, there's always different routes to get to where you want to get to. When I was growing up in Sudbury, I played AAA hockey all the way up to grade 8, and that summer was basically the start of hockey in the summer, like having hockey teams in the summer. And at that time, I was golfing pretty well, and my dad just said, "I don't want you playing hockey in the summer. Concentrate on your golf and other activities." And so that summer, I had a really good summer. Made the Ontario team with Mike Weir, and so the following year we went into high school, and I decided that I wanted to play other sports besides hockey. So I didn't play AAA. I played high school hockey, which was fantastic. Got to meet a lot of my friends who are my good friends now. But I also played basketball. I played volleyball. I did track. I did golf. All kinds of different sports. I enjoyed basketball so much that in grade 10, I decided not to play hockey. I wanted to concentrate on my golf and play high school sports. So I didn't lace up my skates for 2 years, grade 10 and 11, didn't touch them, didn't play out on the rinks, outdoor rinks, anything. So I played basketball, did all the other sports for 2 years. And then grade 12 came along and I really missed hockey. So I went back out and played high school hockey, grade 12, had a great year. Was playing golf also, got a scholarship to West Virginia in my back pocket, but wanted to continue playing hockey. So I played grade 13. We had grade 13 back in Ontario at that time. I played for the Sudbury Cubs, which is a junior tier 2 team up in Sudbury, and had a fantastic year. And 2 schools came up and watched me in February, Western Michigan and Miami of Ohio. And Michigan came up the first weekend, offered me a full scholarship. And then Miami came up the following weekend and offered me a full scholarship. I just liked the coach, George Wozdecki. And he was, we were going to be his first freshman class. So I decided, without even going on a recruiting trip, to go to Miami of Ohio. And I spent 3 years there. After my first year, I got drafted in the 8th round to Montreal. And then I left after my 3rd year of university to join Team Canada and play in the World Championships in '93. And signed my contract that summer and said goodbye to my paintbrush and clutched my hockey stick a little bit tighter. I went to training camp in '93. If everybody remembers who's a Habs fan, they just won the cup in the spring. So I was coming to a tough training camp to make the team, and didn't make the team my first training camp. But in my contract, I asked them if I could go to the national team, the Olympic team, because the Olympics were in 1994. So I joined the Olympic team, played there that year, went to the Olympics, which was one of the highlights of my hockey career, ended up winning the silver medal. And the following year was the lockout year, so we missed half a year in the NHL, but that's when I started my NHL career, was basically in 1994 and 95.
Wow. I just find it mind blowing. I mean, in this day and age, kids are getting signed up to play soccer or hockey or volleyball, and they're being told at these ages of 8 and 10 and 12, like, that's basically all you can do is play that one sport, because there's all these, commitments year round. And I just find it mind blowing that here you are, you made it to the NHL, and yet you weren't even playing the sport for a couple of years during high school. You were doing other sports, and you were still being super active. And but I just find that incredible. And actually, we spoke to Mark Heath the other day, and he was saying similarly. He didn't even play volleyball in high school. So it's just kind of funny, and yet goes on to be, an Olympic medalist in beach volleyball. So I think that's really cool. So listen, there's tons of questions coming in from our group here. Jess wants to make sure she's having a Corona in up in Sudbury. Jess McShane, and here we go. Let's see. We've got what's that?
We're allowed to drink on this show?
Yeah. Crack a beer. Absolutely. Trevor wants you to know this is absolutely savage having you on. Heather was at the first hat trick game at the Bell Center. She thought that was pretty exciting.
Awesome.
And Kent was in attendance during one of the 4-3 overtime wins against Buffalo during the 93 Stanley Cup championship season. What an amazing experience. He's got his jersey on for you. So Noel wants to know, he'd love to hear what was going through your mind the night that you scored 6 points.
Okay, that's a good story. I don't know if you remember the really bad ice storm we had. It was,
yeah.
Trying to see when it was. It was January 8th, 1998. We had a wicked ice storm, and we thought the game was going to be canceled because we have to be in the city the day before. So okay. We had to be in Long Island the day before, and we couldn't get there. So January 8th came, and we still didn't know if we were going to get there or not. Finally, they let us take off. We got to Long Island to the rink, hurried, got on the ice, and it was the least amount of time I played. I played just over 11 minutes in that game and had 6 points. So it was just one of those nights. It's funny that you asked me that because we were just watching my retirement party video at the house here, and that was on the highlights, the 6-point night, and it's still a record, Montreal record. So we're on the road.
Wow. That's amazing. In 11 minutes, that's pretty incredible. So I've got another question here, and I'm going to be honest. It sounds a bit dirty. I don't really understand what is being asked, because I'm not a hockey player, but I'm putting it out there. Dave, DDM wants to know, I don't understand what I'm asking. Who was the best locker room guy you played with in your career? That sounds kind of creepy to me. What am I missing?
Well, there's a couple guys that Dougie Gilmore was a pretty good prankster. He did a lot of funny things. Todd Simpson, when I was down in Phoenix, was a pretty funny guy. Craig Rive from North Bay, really good friend of mine. Those guys always you had to watch yourself when you're in the dressing room with them. They do some funny things.
Is that what you mean? Is that what you meant by your question, DDM? If I missed something there, clarify for me in the chat, but hopefully that answers your question. The next question we've got here is, how did it feel to start your career? Heather would like to know, how did it feel to start your career in the iconic hockey city of Montreal?
Well, it was awesome because Guy Lafleur was my childhood idol. And my nickname, Wands will tell you, was Guy growing up.
I remember that.
So it was awesome. My uncle, Larry Hellman, won the cup there in '69. So my mom's brother won it. He also won 4 cups in Toronto. And he's still the youngest player to win the cup at 18 when he was with the Detroit Red Wings. And it'll never be beat because of the new rules. You have to be 18 now to play in NHL.
Oh, that's great. So it runs in the family. Yeah,
Larry had a great career. Unbelievable. And
that's awesome.
Well, that was my team growing up, was Montreal. Montreal and Buffalo, to be honest with you. I don't know why, maybe because we got to see them so much in Sudbury when we had only 2 channels or 3 channels, whatever we had.
Yeah. That's great. Rob would like to know, Rob is a huge Habs fan. He wants to know, who was the best Canadiens captain during your time with the Habs?
Well, I had a lot of good captains. Started off with Guy Carbonneau, who was an unbelievable leader. Then he got traded, and Kirk Muller was captain for a little bit. Mike Keane was another captain. But I'd have to say it was either between Vinny Donfus, who was a real good friend of mine. He actually stood in our wedding, and Saku Koivu, who was a dear friend of mine. And both those two have awesome leadership skills and communication skills. And they passed it. You learn from everybody that you meet. But those, I'd say, Saku and Vinny are probably the two biggest leaders that I've had in my career.
That's great, and thank you again for connecting me with Vinny Damphus and Jeremy Roenick, both of whom are going to be joining us for future Ask an Athletes in the weeks ahead. So thank you for that. Robbie Coe, old buddy of ours from Sudbury, Robbie Coe is here. Robbie Coe would like to know, what were you thinking during your fight/speed bag with McTavish? Were you thinking, where's oh my gosh, I just blanked on his name. Oh, forget it. It's not funny anymore. It was going to be funny, but carry on. Tell us, what were you thinking when you're in the middle of a fight with McTavish?
Yeah, I knew that was going to come up today for sure, and of course, Robbie Coe would be the one to say it. So it was in my third game in the league. It was on a Super Bowl Sunday. In Montreal, we play our games at earlier time on Saturday and Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, so we can have the Super Bowl at night. And that night, the Super Bowl party was at Patrick Waugh's house. So we were playing the Philadelphia Flyers. I had a goal, I had an assist, and in the third period, Craig McTavish ran Patty Waugh. So, being the young, immature, and maybe never been in a fight before in my life, I grab Craig McTavish, who was the last guy in the league not to wear a helmet. Pretty tough guy, and had a little tussle with him. I was doing pretty good off the start, but the old wily veteran plowed me up against the glass, and next thing you know, I was on the ice with two black eyes. I went to the penalty box, put some ice on them. By the time I got undressed after the game, they were shut. But I did get first star, and I got my only Gordie Howe hat trick of my career that night. So went to Patty Waugh's house after. Everybody had a good chuckle about it. I remember the next day we had to fly to Tampa, and Jacques Demers was our coach at that time. Gave me a big pat on the shoulder. He said, "Hey kid, great job out there. We need you on the ice."
That's great. Anthony would like to know, who is a current active NHL player that perhaps reminds you a bit of yourself?
Ooh, good question. Pacioretty would be someone I could, see that I played like.
How so?
Does a knack for the net. He's big, physical player. He and especially in Montreal, and enjoy going back there all the time. And but no, I can't really think of any crazy stuff.
All right. Jersey apparently, and so they were definitely split. We had a split growing up in the household. Any thoughts on that? Why Sudbury has split fan base?
Yeah, I got to know that very quickly. I think the outskirts of Sudbury are there's more of a French population, so that's why they really like their Habs, and obviously the Leafs being so close to Sudbury, a lot of guys get to go, families get to go and watch.
Sure.
I remember this one time, speaking of Robbie Coe, coming down to watch me, and he could be the biggest Leafs fan in the world, but we were playing the Leafs, and he brings his Leaf jersey, so he's sitting in my seats with the Leaf jersey on, and after the game, and wants to come down and go through the dressing room. I'm like, not a chance coming down with that jersey on, coming through Montreal Canadian dressing room. So
somehow it does not surprise me, knowing Robbie Coe. Chuck Bolt would like to know, what brought you to Northville, Michigan?
Boys hockey. So I retired in Scottsdale in 2006 after I played with the Philadelphia Flyers my last year. I was there till 2015, and I had an opportunity to go over to Europe, Salzburg, Austria. Pierre Page, who used to be a GM, he was running the Red Bull Hockey Academy and the Red Bull Hockey Worldwide. And so I took my whole family over there. The boys enjoyed a year of being in Europe. Deb and I also got to travel a lot. But after that year, we had to decide where we wanted to go and, be the best possible position for the boys to succeed in hockey. So we were looking at Toronto, we were looking at Detroit, Chicago, but Detroit had some connections that I had through my university and coaches. So we thought that would be the best. And Northville is about 30 minutes west of downtown Detroit, a nice area. So that's where we ended up being.
Very good. So Brian married his high school sweetheart, Debbie Ryan, and they've got 3 boys, Ryan, Redmond, and Rory, who all are super active and incredible hockey players, each of them. You guys, it's awesome to see how much you've really put the kids' efforts as a front, sort of like, just as you said, the way you made your choices for where you've chosen to live over the years. It's pretty fabulous to see. It's awesome. Lucky boys. Matt Mazzotti would love to know, Brian, he says, you guys so often make it look easy on the ice. Can you talk about what it's like to rise to and above the level of competition when you're playing in the NHL?
Well, Matt, it's not easy at all. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of repetition, and doing other stuff than just playing hockey. As I said, other sports really help you with your coordination. What you do off the ice is almost important what you do on the ice. Building strength, endurance, and flexibility. Flexibility was not my biggest asset for sure. But I think you got to have that in you. You got to have the compete. And if anybody knows me, in any sport, I love to compete and try to win at everything and compete against good buddies and friends. And that's what you need to bring on the ice. I saw a lot of guys that had way more skill than me that didn't make it because they didn't have that compete in them. And they were lazy and they were that, but they were much more talented than I was, but just didn't put in the time and didn't compete.
So a little hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Mm-hmm.
We have a couple more questions. Have you got a few more minutes?
I got all night. I got nothing to do.
Awesome. Okay. So we've got a question here from Harjeet. Would like to know, can you share your favorite Saku Koivu or Patrick Roy story?
Oh, Patrick Roy story for sure. I think you guys, if you're Habs fans, know about the Patrick Roy incident leading to his trade out of Montreal. So this is a story that goes back to the first day he got hired, who was Mario Tremblay and Réjean Houle. Mario Tremblay and Patrick Roy were roommates when they played together back in the 80s. So they had some stories. So when Mario got hired after they fired Jacques Demers, Patrick and Mike Keane were just telling some stories before the game. We were playing Toronto that night, and Mario comes in to do his first speech to the team. And if you know Mario, he can't speak English that well, or he couldn't back then. It was really choppy. So he's doing his speech. Halfway during his speech, Patty starts cracking up in his speech. So that didn't start off good. And Mario sort of goes, "Oh, what's going on, Patrick? Blah, blah, blah. Sorry." About a minute later, he cracks up again. So that's how it all started. We ended up winning that game and everything was fine. But about 3 weeks later, we were in Buffalo. And when Patrick Roy was under Jacques Demers, he always decided when he was going to play and when he needed rest. Well, we were playing Buffalo, and Mario comes in and goes to our backup goalie, who was I forget his name. Anyways, he goes, "You're in." Oh, Jablonski, Pat Jablonski goes, "Jabber, you're in tonight." And Patty goes, "No, no, I'm good." And Mario goes, "No, no, we need you tomorrow night back in Montreal." And so Mario leaves the room, and Patty goes up to Pat Jablonski and goes, "Hey, don't worry about it. I got this tonight." So out for warm up we go, and there's Patty on net, and Mario's face is just beet red, and this and that. Come back in the room after the thing. 5 minutes before we have our little speech before the game, Mario goes, "Jabber, you're in tonight," and walks out quick. And so Jablonski's sitting here, like, here's Patrick Waugh, who just won Stanley Cup a year ago, legend Montreal, and he doesn't know what the hell to do. So here we go on the ice. Who's standing in the crease for the anthem? Patrick Waugh. So there was a little friction, obviously, there, right? So that brings us to the Detroit game in December, and Patrick was not having a great game. I think it was 6-0 after 2 periods. So thinking that Mario's going to yank him for the third, but didn't. Told him to go back in. They ended up scoring another one. And then he did the famous hands up. And then they scored another one. And finally, they yanked him. I think it was 8-1 or 9-1 at the time. And Patrick comes back to the bench, walks to the other end of the bench, drops his gear, walks back, talks to our president, Ronald Corey, and says, "This is my last game in Montreal." Went back, sat down on the bench. I sat beside him right in the dressing room. So he came into the dressing room after the game. He must have been out of there in 2 minutes. And that was the last we seen of him. And for Réjean Houle, that was his first NHL trade. He had to trade Patrick Waugh.
Wow. Wow. That is quite a story. That's quite a story. And now on that note, I'm going to move to our second last question, which comes from a close buddy and teammate of mine who is a goalie himself. Cal wants to know, what was your favorite road city to play in and grab a post-game beer afterwards?
Ooh, good question. There's a lot of good ones. Vancouver was a great city. Good food out there. I love seafood. So that was a great place. New York is always entertaining, obviously not right now, but it was a good place when we played the Rangers. We always stayed right downtown at Times Square, which was awesome all the time. So I'd say those 2 cities were fun.
Awesome. So I'm going to wrap up with a little question from me. So Brian, I know you could play pretty much any sport and excel. The Sport and Social Group offers all sorts of sports for people to play. We really believe that we've got something for everybody. And we have floor hockey leagues and ice hockey leagues. But let's say you're signing up to play in the Sport and Social Club, and I'm like, "Brian, I'm sorry, pal, you are not allowed to play floor hockey or ice hockey with us." In fact, we actually tell a lot of our floor hockey players, "Hey guys, you're not making it to the NHL from these leagues. So settle down." Anyway, if you were going to play for Sport and Social Club in the Sport and Social Club, what sport would you play? Would it be dodgeball, kickball, curling, basketball, softball, soccer, ultimate frisbee, inner tube water polo? What do you think you'd sign up to play?
Ooh, do you got crossnet?
We don't. I don't even know what that is.
You don't know what crossnet is?
No. Oh, is that the one that's like volleyball nets?
Like that.
Yeah.
Squares. We just got introduced to it last year, and we play with the boys all the time on our camping trips or RVs. That would be a great league, or it's more individual, but you could maybe have team pairs or something like that. So
something we'll have to check out. And now George Bernard Shaw was quoted as saying, I always mix this up in my head when I'm not reading it. Okay, George Bernard Shaw said, we don't quit playing because we grow old. We grow old because we quit playing. The tagline at Sport and Social Group is keep playing. How important do you think it is to keep playing as we move into our middle life, later years? How important do you think it is to keep playing for people?
Oh, you definitely need to do something to keep your mind going, especially during these times. My wife Debbie and I, we go for walks, like an hour-long walk these days, just to get outside, get the body shaking and moving. And we got a little par 3 golf course we set up in the backyard for the boys. play a little golf. You saw on the video there on your website.
Yeah.
We got the shooting gallery for the boys, the workout room in the garage. Just trying to lose a couple of lbs like everybody, and stay fit because we need a couple beers at night, to get to sleep. And but you got to stay active, especially right now. There's no excuse you have the time to do something, right? And I just want to thank you. I think you're doing a big part in trying to keep people active, and love your website and your challenges. I ask everybody to go try those challenges that Christy has put out. Looks good, Wands. Looks good.
Before we wrap up, Brian, I'm going to ask. We're going to do a quick unmuting in a second of everyone, just so they can quickly say thank you and sign off. But before we unmute everyone, I would like to say thank you so much to each and every one of you for joining us today. And Savvy, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. If you feel inclined, guys, please remember to make a donation to Brian's charity of choice. And remember, everyone, keep playing. Take an opportunity to say goodnight and thank you to Brian. Thanks, everyone.
Guys.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Cheers, Savvy. See you soon.
Brian.
Hi, Johnny. Hi, John.
Go Habs.
Thanks, Savvy. Say hi to Debbie for me.
Nice to you.
Thanks, Brian.
Bye, Dad.
Hi, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Good to
Thanks, Brian.
Good to see you.
See you on the lake, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Bye, guys.
Bye, sweetheart. Way
Thanks,
to go.
Brian.